I'll have forgotten you in a week. That's what my fiancée sneered as she humiliated me in front of her entire family. So I took the ring back. And let's just say, she didn't take it well. Buckle up, Reddit. My fiancée cheated, publicly shredded me, and then claimed she'd erase me from her memory in 7 days. Spoiler, it didn't go how she planned. I'm Luke, 32, from Pittsburgh. 3 years of my life just exploded over Sunday dinner. But honestly, best thing that ever happened to me. Here's why. First, let me set the scene. I rebuild heavy machinery for work. Caterpillar excavators, John Deere beasts, anything with hydraulics and enough power to flatten a city block. There's something deeply satisfying about taking a broken down machine and bringing it back to life. My shop sits between two bridges over the Mon River. Lunch breaks, I watch coal barges drift downstream while eating the same sandwich I've packed for 2 years straight. Turkey, Swiss, apple, black coffee, and yes, an actual thermos. My supervisor, Jake, says I'm the only guy under 40 who still uses one. Guilty. Tuesday and Thursday nights, I train at Clough's Boxing Club on the south side. It's an old school gym that smells like leather and decades of sweat. Coach Clough isn't big on words. He fixes your form with a tap of his walking stick or a grunt in Russian. But here's what really matters to this story. My 1973 Dodge Challenger. I dragged it out of a field in Washington County, a complete rust bucket, but the numbers matching 340 small block under all that corrosion was still alive. The frame was solid, and for the past 2.5 years, I've been slowly resurrecting this beast. Right now, I'm debating between keeping the original Torque Flight automatic or swapping in a TMC 5-speed. Purists would have opinions, but hey, it's my car. My buddy Ray, my best friend since we served together in the Guard, thinks I'm insane for tackling a frame-off restoration while planning a wedding. Ray does security systems now and believes everything needs cameras and access controls. He's also the guy who saved my skin in this whole mess. So pay attention to Ray. After his own messy divorce 2 years ago, he convinced me to document everything better. Memories fade, he always says, but receipts don't lie. Smart man. Now about those wedding expenses. Fiona and I agreed last February to split everything 50-50. I've got the text thread to prove it. February 12th. Her exact words. Made sense. We're both adults with jobs. I started tracking every penny. The venue deposit? $2,800. I paid it, sent her the receipt, and asked for her half. 3 weeks later, she sent me $1,400 with some story about a delayed commission check. Seemed reasonable at the time. She's in real estate, so income can be unpredictable, right? Wrong. The caterer wanted $2,200 up front. Same routine. I paid. She sent $800 and promised the rest next week. Meanwhile, and this should have been a neon red flag, she was posting Instagram stories from fancy restaurants, weekend trips with her girlfriends, designer purse hauls, spa days, concert tickets, yet somehow never had cash for the wedding expenses we'd agreed to split. I didn't push it, though. Not my style to argue over money with someone I was planning to marry. But I kept records. Here's the thing about diesel repair. Problems don't lie. You diagnose the issue, order the right parts, fix it, and move on. People? People are a lot messier. Fiona treated our wedding like her personal coronation. 3 Pinterest boards, vendor spreadsheets, a planning binder thicker than a phone book. She talked about centerpieces and invitation fonts like they were matters of national security. Meanwhile, I handled all the actual payments while watching our savings drain as she focused on the creative aspects. She kept hinting at upgrading the venue to somewhere more prestigious and bumping up the guest count because people will judge us if we cheap out. When I reminded her we'd already stretched our budget to the limit, she suggested I work overtime or maybe sell the Challenger to free up money for what really matters. Then things imploded. One Tuesday, she announced, didn't ask, announced, that her family wanted us over for Sunday dinner. Her mother apparently needed to coordinate final details. I told her I'd be there at 3 p.m. sharp after I finished installing new bushings in the Challenger's front suspension. She rolled her eyes and made some crack about how I always prioritize my little hobby over family. When I pointed out that precision suspension work can't be rushed, she snapped, "Maybe you should have thought about that before wasting money on a rust bucket." Right, because planning ahead is a character flaw. In heavy equipment diagnostics, you learn to read the subtle signs before total failure. Ignore the warnings, and you're looking at a full engine rebuild, or worse. I should have applied that logic to my relationship. Sunday afternoon, I showed up at Fiona's parents' place at exactly 3 p.m. I'd spent the morning pressing new control arm bushings into the Challenger, so my hands were scrubbed with pumice soap, my nails cleaned with a wire brush. Fiona's sister Janet and her husband were there, plus Fiona's dad at the grill and her mom in the kitchen. The first hour was the usual small talk: weather, work, holiday plans. Fiona kept checking her phone, smiling at messages, and changing the subject every time someone asked about the Challenger or my job. Classic red flags in hindsight. The shift came when Janet asked about honeymoon plans. Fiona launched into her standard spiel about upgraded resort packages and first-class flights, none of which we'd actually agreed on, by the way. Then she pivoted. Some people aren't stepping up financially to make our shared dreams a reality. She was staring right at me. What followed was the systematic demolition of everything I cared about. My little hobby car was a waste of money that could have gone toward our future. Maybe if I had real ambitions, instead of being satisfied with mediocrity, we could afford the wedding she actually deserved. Janet laughed awkwardly, but I caught the knowing glance she exchanged with Fiona's mother. This was a coordinated ambush, and I was the guest of honor. Fiona wasn't done. My job was fine for someone without goals. The house I rent was embarrassing. My routine was suffocating, and my friends were guys going nowhere. She'd apparently been settling this whole time, hoping I'd grow up and want more from life. Then came the Kevin reveal. Not just a friend, but someone who actually has ambition and knows what he wants from life. Someone with a real career who took her to places that matter and treated her like she deserved. They'd been connecting for months, and he'd shown her what real chemistry felt like. She said all this while her family nodded like they'd heard it before. These people had been in on it. Then Fiona looked me dead in the eye, twisted the engagement ring off her finger, and threw it at me. Not handed it back, threw it, like she was trying to hurt me. The ring bounced off my chest and skittered across the hardwood, that sharp metallic clink echoing in the silence. You know what? I'm done with this charade. It's cheap anyway, just like everything else about this relationship. She turned to her family. Did you know he bought this at some discount jewelry store? Kevin would never be so cheap with something that important. The room went silent, except for Fiona's rant. 3 years of my life, wasted on someone who thinks fixing trucks is a career and spending weekends in a garage is a lifestyle. I deserve so much better than this. I'll forget you in a week. Honestly, I'm already halfway there. Here's the thing, Reddit. In that moment, I felt this strange calm wash over me. Not anger, not hurt, just crystal clear clarity. I stood up, walked over, picked up the ring, white gold, quarter-carat diamond, 4 months of saving, slipped it into my pocket, and walked to where Fiona's dad stood by the sliding door. I pulled her spare house key off my keychain. Thanks for dinner, Mr. Parker. That was it. No defense, no correction. No pointing out that she'd been spending my money while cheating on me. What would have been the point? You don't argue with someone who's already decided to humiliate you in front of their family. I walked through the dining room, where everyone suddenly found their plates fascinating, made it to the front door, and pulled out my phone. One word text to Ray. Implemented. By the time I reached the end of the driveway, Ray's Silverado was pulling up to the curb. Perfect timing, because we'd planned for this. He didn't ask questions, just rolled down the window and nodded toward the passenger seat. Well, he said once we were on the main road, that was either the shortest Sunday dinner in history or the most efficient breakup I've ever seen. My phone was already buzzing with what I assumed were texts from Fiona, but I didn't look. No point reading the fallout while emotions were still raw. The drive to my place took 12 minutes, enough time to start making mental lists, change the locks, sort out the banking, update emergency contacts, cancel whatever vendors I could without penalties. Practical first. Emotional processing could wait. But here's what really grinds my gears. She orchestrated this entire humiliation while owing me money. She'd been using our joint account to fund her affair, then had the nerve to call me cheap in front of her family. The manipulation was almost impressive, if you're into that sort of thing. Monday morning, 6 a.m. sharp. First order of business, new locks. Not just changing the codes. I replaced the entire deadbolt with a Schlega Grade 1 that Ray recommended. 45 minutes and $68 at Home Depot. The old hardware went into my toolbox as a backup. Fiona had texted me 18 times Sunday night and called 11 times before 7 a.m. Monday. I read every message, took screenshots, then blocked her number. The texts started with fake apologies. I didn't mean it like that, and escalated to full rage. You can't just ignore me, mixed with threats about coming to get my stuff. Funny how, I'll forget you in a week, turned into obsessive messaging, huh? Work was normal. I spent Monday rebuilding the injector pump on a 2019 Caterpillar 329 and used my lunch break to update my personnel file with HR. Removed Fiona from emergency contacts, insurance beneficiary, retirement account. Added Ray as primary, and my brother as backup. Monday night, I started what I call the audit. Joint checking, $3,047.32. Joint savings, $12,231.80. Shared subscriptions, Netflix, Spotify, gym membership. I downloaded 12 months of statements, took screenshots of everything, and documented what I could change immediately versus what needed both signatures. The wedding vendor situation was more complicated. I organized everything in manila folders, contracts, payment schedules, cancellation policies, refund calculations. Turns out most vendors had reasonable cancellation windows if you knew how to read the fine print. The caterer had a 2-week policy with a 60% refund. The venue required 30 days notice, but would return deposits minus a $350 processing fee. The DJ had a 10-day policy with a full refund if cancelled more than 2 weeks out. Then I found that February text thread where Fiona had agreed to split costs. Her exact words, "Makes sense." We're both adults with jobs. Screenshot saved, timestamp visible. I set up an incident log in a spiral notebook. Date, time, description of any contact attempts. Kept it factual, brief. October 23rd, 6:22 p.m. Phone call from blocked number. Did not answer. Tuesday at boxing, Coach Clove had me working combinations on the heavy bag. My timing was off, and he tapped my lead shoulder with his walking stick. You pull punch back too fast. Follow through, then return to guard. Wednesday, Ray showed up after work with plastic storage bins and his label printer. We went through my house room by room, identifying everything that belonged to Fiona. Some clothes, toiletries, maybe 15 books, a lucky coffee mug, and this hideous throw pillow she'd bought for the couch. 3 years of living together, and her entire footprint fit in 2 boxes. Makes you wonder what she was actually invested in. Each item got photographed and logged. When she came for her stuff, there'd be no confusion. Ray also helped me set up a shared Google spreadsheet tracking all wedding expenses and vendor contacts. Clean formatting, cancellation deadlines highlighted in red, refund percentages auto-calculated. The man knows his spreadsheets. The Challenger became my evening therapy. I started stripping the interior, bench seat, door panels, dash, carpet, headliner, everything labeled with masking tape and stored in the spare bedroom. The wiring harness needed replacement anyway, and I'd been putting off the brake line inspection. I ordered parts online. Edelbrock intake manifold for the 340, MSD ignition system, new seat covers for when I got around to reupholstering. Steady progress on something that was mine. By Friday, I had total control. Fiona's access was gone from everything I could handle alone. Shared documents were organized, deadlines flagged. Her belongings were inventoried and ready for pickup. New locks. Incident log started. Financial accounts secured. The wedding was supposed to be in 6 weeks. Most vendors had cancellation policies that worked in my favor if I moved fast. 3 years of relationship ending, but the financial damage was still manageable if I stayed organized and didn't make emotional decisions, which I didn't. Tuesday morning, 6:30 a.m. Time to start making vendor calls before work. The venue coordinator picked up on the second ring. I referenced the 30-day cancellation clause in Section 4.2 of our contract, gave our booking reference, and requested written confirmation. She put me on hold for 3 minutes, came back with a cancellation number, and confirmed the deposit refund, minus fees, would take 7 to 10 business days. Next, the caterer. 2-week window, 60% refund policy, clearly stated. I'd paid the $2,200 deposit 7 weeks earlier, so I qualified for $1,120 back. The owner wanted it in writing, so I fired off an email immediately with contract references. The DJ offered a full refund if cancelled more than 7 days before the event. Simple. Every conversation got documented. Date, time, contact person, confirmation numbers, expected refunds. By the time I left for work, I'd cancelled 6 vendors and had 2 more to call during lunch. All refunds were going back to my account, since I'd been the one paying. The ring situation got handled Thursday. Took it to Morrison's Fine Jewelry in Shadyside. The appraiser checked it over, quoted me 65% of retail. Fair deal. Walked out with a check for $1,780, enough to order the suspension rebuild kit for the Challenger, plus proper wiring tools and interior hardware. Small claims paperwork took longer than the vendor cancellations. Pennsylvania's system has straightforward forms online, but I wanted everything filed correctly. The complaint was simple. Fiona owed me her share of non-refundable wedding expenses. I printed that February text thread, highlighted her "Makes sense, we're both adults with jobs" line in yellow, and added copies of all receipts. The venue's processing fee was $350. The photographer's non-refundable portion was $420. Total claim, $1,247. Ray came over Thursday night to double-check my math and organize the evidence packet like some kind of legal ninja. Filing fee, $78. Paid it Friday morning at the courthouse. Got my case number. Scheduled service for the following week. By Sunday, I was in control. Refunds processing. Court paperwork filed. Fiona's stuff boxed. I sent one text to her sister Janet. Fiona's things are ready. What day works? Kept it simple. Logistical. No drama. Response came back 3 hours later, scheduling pickup for Tuesday at 6:01 p.m. No direct contact with Fiona required. I closed my binder and ran through the checklist one last time. $4,350 in refunds pending. Small claims filed for $1,247. Personal property ready for transfer. Emergency contacts updated. Locks changed. Accounts secured. 4 weeks of methodical work to untangle 3 years of planning. Not bad for someone who doesn't understand what it means to actually experience life. I put my phone in the kitchen drawer and went back to the garage. The Challenger's brake system wasn't going to rebuild itself.